Hello good people, this is Stove here, back with another video. This time we are going to be reviewing the conference championships, all 9 of them. Some of them came out exactly how a lot of people thought it would. Some people saw some very close games, and other people saw some absolute blowouts that weren't necessarily really expected to happen. And with that being said, let's get right into it. This may actually end up being a shorter video than usual, but yeah, again, let's get right into it. First off, we got North Texas versus Tulane. Very back and forth. North Texas definitely was staying in there for a good solid time in that first half. I think it's pretty much very similar to all of the games throughout, besides maybe either Boise State and the James Madison one, and you could probably even say, the Georgia and Alabama game. And it was kind of the same thing, but pretty much one team started off slow, or both teams started off pretty slow, but they were able to get some points on the board. But Tulane pretty much had North Texas' number. North Texas did have to face Tulane at their place, so it was exactly kind of how Tulane wanted to draw it up. They had a lot more possession time against North Texas, and had even, I believe they were able to win a slight turnover battle, I believe. But yeah, solid work for Tulane. They were defensively, they were able to shut down North Texas' passing game, and that's pretty much all they really needed to do. And Tulane brought their own passing game, plus their rushing as well, was a huge factor in them winning as big as they were able to, winning by 13 points. So pretty solid game right there. The James Madison versus Troy was pretty good. Troy really couldn't do too much against James Madison. I think they were just like a lot better. If it wasn't a conference championship game, you could probably argue that James Madison would have scored more on Troy. But with Troy's defense being able to at least have some playmaking here and there, you still saw James Madison score 31 points throughout the entire game. And again, it didn't seem like Troy couldn't really do anything about it besides score the 14 points, I believe. I might be wrong whenever I say this, but I'm pretty sure those 14 points came in by the second half, so didn't really make too much of a difference, especially since James Madison just kind of ran up a lot of the time on themselves. Now here is a much more closer game, Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State. Kennesaw State being the first away team to win, and the only away team to win on Friday. Solid game, truly defensively, very, very back and forth. 19-15, as you can see here. Couldn't ask for probably a better defensive battle besides obviously what we have gotten tonight, which actually it'd be early in the morning when I'm recording this. So yes, yesterday night we got some more solid defensive battles, but again, Jacksonville State tried their best, but at the end Kennesaw State was able to take a 4-point lead and get exactly what they needed to get I wasn't able to really watch too much of this game because I was a little focused on the Boise State and UNLV game. But again, like I said, defensively, close game. But Boise State, going off of Boise State, they were able to do a lot of damage early. UNLV tried to keep up with them defensively. Boise State was just a lot tougher, showed a lot more grit, especially from having quite a few more of these players from last year and maybe even the year before, where Boise State had racked up a lot of solid matchups from last year and now bringing it into this year. Yes, they had lost 4 games. UNLV technically had a better game, better season than Boise State this year, but Boise State still has a lot of these older guys, more veteran-like guys who've been around and have been facing, I think, better competition than UNLV has ever faced. And it definitely shows with Boise State just having a way better team going into the conference championship. Hell, technically squeezing by in the conference championship. But I mean, arguably you can say that UNLV did the same thing. But yeah, that's pretty much Friday there. Like I said, seen a lot more closer games, some blowouts, some games ended up being somewhat back and forth until it started to kind of edge a little bit more for the other team by the third and fourth quarter, and the other team really couldn't do too much. Now, obviously, we are not going to talk about this game yet, but we will talk about the first 2 games, which was BYU versus Texas Tech, Miami, Ohio versus Western Michigan. Western Michigan, neither team did a very good job passing wise, but Cam Perry did have 101 receiving yards, plus Jalen Buckley 193 rushing yards. True stats for Western Michigan, did exactly what they needed to do. Because of both teams' defense, it ended up being a very small and not lackluster, but definitely more contained point-wise. And you got to give a hand to all of these all of these teams with their defensive prowess, their formats, their just their plays in general, and their grit on defense, their ability to have to get these playmakers that we see every single year. And with Miami, Ohio, it was pretty much kind of close, but Western Michigan, again, one of those teams that just pulled ahead in that third and fourth quarter and let the defense kind of do its thing. I believe Western Michigan even had 8 more minutes of possession than Miami, Ohio, or more than that. So the running game really came in handy for sure. And I don't even think Miami, Ohio could have done anything more, unfortunately. But it is what it is. I was rooting for Miami, Ohio. Obviously, just because I have an old teammate, high school teammate of mine, who plays on defense in Miami, Ohio. But at the same time, they tried their best. They fought their hardest. I'm sure, looking back at it, you can probably pinpoint some things that they could have definitely done better in, and could have had even more of a chance if they did do certain things on offense differently, or different things on defense that would have even made it a closer game, like 16-13 instead of 23-13. But again, pretty dang close. BYU versus Texas Tech wasn't really close. I mean, you look at just the first half, okay, we have a game, pretty much. Texas Tech, I believe it was 13-7. Texas Tech was winning. Okay, cool. It was either 13-7. No, it had to have been 14-7. But they knew, like, okay, first half done. Let's get it going. After the half, we got to come out swinging. They swung for the other side of the fence, and what I mean by that is the quarterback could not stop passing it to the same linebacker in Roberts, Texas Tech's linebacker, star linebacker of this game as well, because the guy had 2 interceptions, almost 3 interceptions, and could have easily ran back 2 out of 3 of those if he wasn't tackled from behind or instantly like touched on the ground. So very solid work defensively, pressuring BYU's quarterback, true freshman quarterback, by the way. So interesting enough. I don't think this will be the last time we see BYU in the Big 12 Conference Championship for in the next 3 to 4 years. So you never know. Texas Tech, though, truly absolute defensive pressure. If it wasn't for the defense, Texas Tech probably wouldn't have been able to score as great as they did. Realistically, they were also having defensive troubles. Whenever they would get behind, I would probably say for the most majority of their drives, if they were behind the 35, their own 35, or behind, then they would end up having to punt, and that pretty much same thing with BYU, but it happened a lot more often. But I'm pretty sure, I think they turned over the ball more than they punted, or the same amount at times that they punted. I mean, that's just how many times BYU turned over the ball, and Texas Tech had field position, great field position, 3 different times when the ball was turned over in favor for Texas Tech. And one drive, they literally only had 4 plays, and it had a nice wildcat formation, I believe, into the end zone. So very solid. Texas Tech defensively looked unstoppable, though I would probably say they just read BYU's quarterback like a book, and I don't think BYU, the way that they played against Texas Tech, didn't look like that they were even playoff ready. If they somehow would have pulled this off against Texas Tech, it would have been a fluke, truly, even though a lot of people would have been like, well, the adversity and going through all this stuff, it was definitely a good game by both teams. No, if BYU somehow would have pulled this game off still, I think if they would have turned over the ball once, maybe twice, like an interception and a fumble somewhere, I could see that. And then at the same time, Texas Tech would have still probably won 21-7 or 24-7. And that's probably about it. Still would have pretty much blown out the BYU team. I just feel like there was way too much going on for BYU's offense to even comprehend what they were doing. That, and there was tons of miscues. There was tons of little mistakes that were going on. Nothing was going right for that BYU offense. Besides the first touchdown by them in their first drive, everything else was going to shit. truly. And you want to watch the highlights, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. If you want to watch the full game, you'll see even more what I'm talking about, because every single drive there were miscues, there were mistakes done by offensive linemen, or the quarterback would make some mistakes. Obviously, he made enough mistakes turning over the ball 2 or 3 separate times by himself, and that's not even the half of it. Well, probably a little bit more than half of it, but still, I mean, there's just a long list of what BYU did, causing them to have their worst game of the season, arguably. I don't even think arguably, really. Probably is. And it's just a shame that it wasn't too much of a fight with two supposable titans, two teams that were in the top 12 fighting for higher seeding, fighting for a playoff contention, fighting for playoff qualifiers and stuff like that. So realistically, it should have been a better game, but Texas Tech was like, no, we're not. We're going to beat the living crap out of BYU. And the moment that they make their first mistake, that would be their first mistake, is to make a mistake, because then we will ride that mistake into another mistake and another mistake and another mistake. And then we will continue to ride that gravy train into us winning by getting turnovers for our offense, and then proceeding to also score on those turnovering drives, which I'm pretty sure they either were, because I'm pretty sure they turned the ball over like 4 times. I think they might have been 3 for 4 on points after turnovers, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they turned it over a little bit more. I don't know. The ball was going everywhere in Texas Tech's situation. I mean, Texas Tech's side. Like, it was always going well for Texas Tech, and maybe it was just their pressure that made it that way. Maybe BYU came in and they couldn't handle it. But again, I'm just talking way too much about this game. More or less just because I remember this game a little bit more than some of these other ones on Friday, but truly just a combination of BYU making way too many mistakes and Texas Tech looking like a college playoff contending team that we know that they can be. And hell, that's what money buys you, I guess, in college. But anyway, now we go on to Georgia and Alabama. Very surprising issue. Obviously, for some people, some Alabama fans, some Georgia fans may have looked at Alabama and been like, well, if Georgia starts getting going, then Alabama may not be able to come back, because Georgia has been pretty damn solid, especially after learning from that loss. Like I'm pretty sure I said in the last video that if Georgia has learned from their loss, that if Alabama's defense also comes in, it's going to be a very tough game. But Georgia learns from their loss, from them, they end up overcoming Alabama to a certain degree. But also, last video I was very more high on Alabama winning, just like how I was more high on Virginia winning. But I also said pretty much the same thing about Duke, I believe. Yeah. Or it was I believe it was BYU. I was very high on Texas Tech, but I was like, if BYU doesn't, if BYU learns from their mistakes, then they can just kind of flip over and be like, okay, well, this is what we need to do. Take the time, get more time of possession, try to chew this clock, and try to have Texas defense out there as long as possible, not letting them rest pretty much, and keep our guys from getting that way. But yeah, Georgia and Alabama, truly, like, you saw some solid things in that first half for Alabama, and it just started trickling down. It just looked like Georgia was unstoppable for the most part. Alabama had been able to get some like third and outs a little bit more consistently in the first half, mostly in that first quarter, because they were both pretty much feeling each other out, because they both know that they're going to make some changes. They're going to try to throw things out somewhere just to see what works, what doesn't work. But by the second quarter, or you should probably think like the last 5 minutes of the first quarter, things started to look up further and further for Georgia. And then further and further into the game, it started to look further down for Alabama. Ty Simpson throwing an interception, I think almost throwing a second interception as well. He was able to get a passing touchdown, but nothing really too crazy. Funny enough, though, Georgia had like 130-something, 140-something rushing yards, but Alabama had -3 rushing yards. And really, that's only because Ty Simpson had technically was a carrier and had carried the ball 6 times while trying to move out of the pocket and stuff like that, tucked the ball in and declared himself as a runner doing so, and then was trying to do some stuff but ended up failing, which causes the stats to look very crappy for the rushing game of Alabama. But even without that, Alabama still only rushes for about, I would say, total, probably not even 35 or so rushing yards. So it really didn't look good for Alabama. Their rushing game wasn't there. Alabama's defense was kind of getting their butts handed to them by Georgia's rushing game. And on top of that, they, even with Georgia leading tremendously in penalties, it still really didn't help Alabama too much. I think Georgia had either 7 or 8 penalties with about 70 or so yards of those penalties, from those penalties, and Alabama only had 1 flag thrown on them, which was a 5-yard penalty, and that was it. And they were also pretty inconsistent on the third downs, though. When you're down as much as you are, that second half, you're trying to do whatever you can. And obviously they were even, I think they were 0 for 3 on fourth downs, but that's also just because, second half, you're down by so much. In that fourth quarter, you're trying your damnedest to get back in there. And it does suck to see Alabama get destroyed like that, especially in the conference championship, especially also after they plastered pretty much. Georgia had never won against Alabama in the SEC conference championship, and then Georgia does that. So maybe it just showed that Alabama wasn't ready, or they took Georgia way too lightly, or they just made a lot of inconsistent mistakes. Well, a lot of consistent mistakes, but there's so much inconsistency between their offense that even when their defense made plays, there still wasn't enough stuff going right for Alabama to even get continuous drives, to get at least 3 points, to get a touchdown. Now, granted, Georgia's defense is phenomenal, but you're also looking at an Alabama team that was, I believe, favorited to win. And that's why a lot of people think that Alabama got shocked in this situation. Now, also, they were in Atlanta, I believe, so it's pretty much Georgia's space, even though Alabama was technically the home team. It was pretty much all Georgia's space. So a lot of different things had happened going for either one of these two teams, and it ended up just being that Georgia, even when they made the inconsistencies, even having not so good of a day on third downs either, they still made 2 more third down conversions than Alabama. And at the same time, I think they also made 2 or 3 more fourth down conversions, and just had a way more solid game. Alabama giving up 28 points to that passing game pretty much, and run game, a little bit of the running game, but just a true killer to Alabama's defense. And again, you can't necessarily do too much when Georgia has also gotten the ball about 16 more minutes, I believe, than Alabama's offense. So, yeah, very unfortunate there. But now you had, going into 8 o'clock, you had Duke versus Virginia, which by the halftime, Duke was actually leading by, I believe this one was 14-7 or 13-7, but Duke was actually leading going into halftime. Virginia's coach pretty much just saying, like, hey, you know, we need to stay consistent. We need to get the ball during this kickoff, get the ball, drive down the field, get a touchdown. Now we're tied up. Now we got to play some hard-nosed football. And that's pretty much what they did in the second half. The only issue is that they could not finish going through with it. And unfortunately, Duke played a better ball game throughout the entire... Now, Virginia, again, came out in that second half a lot better. Was able to score a lot more efficiently, and was also able to play defense. Still, though, allowing 13 points in the second half. Well, I would say 10 points in the second half. And then... And then allowing another 17 points in the overtime, I believe. My head's starting to hurt. So yeah, Virginia did play again. I'm repeating myself, sorry guys, but Virginia playing a very good game second half wise. First half, very much of a struggle, though Duke was playing very conservative, just trying to chew down as much clock as possible, which was working. Chandler Morris played very conservative ball, and his coach couldn't have been prouder of him, especially getting that offense getting a solid touchdown in overtime, and just relaxing. You know, really wasn't trying to do too much, but the fact that they were able to get a conference championship win was phenomenal. The only problem is now, since Virginia loses against Duke in the conference championship, now unless Miami doesn't go in there, even with Alabama losing against Georgia, Texas Tech beating the crap out of BYU, Indiana beating Ohio State, which Ohio State really doesn't get affected too much. They'll drop out of the top 4 for sure, but at the same time, I think BYU's obviously out, Virginia out, so more than likely you'll have Notre Dame and Miami go in there. Plus, I think they've already spoken about it, but Alabama is facing Oklahoma, or at least should be, with Alabama being number 10, Oklahoma being number 9, then Notre Dame being switching up right there. I don't know I think since James Madison and Tulane both won their games, Miami is not actually going to be making it to the playoffs. So really, I don't think there's going to be any ACC teams going into the college playoffs, unfortunately. That being said, though, teams that will be going in are a couple of Big Ten teams still, even though Ohio State did drop by 3 points to Indiana. A lot of things going on. Both teams, phenomenal defense, truly. Jamari Smith, I feel like I'm butchering his first name, but you guys can comment below if I am or not. Still having 144 receiving yards, but it still doesn't help that you guys are trying to target him as much as possible. But the fact that he's getting double and triple covered, now Sayan is wondering, where the hell do I throw to besides trying to check it down, even though I have enough time on the clock. We have a couple of timeouts still, but at the same time, what do I do? Now, for me, in my opinion, and I had posted about this, even commented on this on Facebook, on this post that Chatterbox, if you guys don't know Chatterbox, they are a small little Facebook page. I'm sure they're also a little local news, sports news place as well. But you look up Chatterbox on Facebook, go ahead and go look at them. They got a lot of good posts and stuff like that throughout college football, lots of different sports and stuff like that they go ahead and post. But on one of them, you'd see, what did you think about the 4th and 1 stuff? The very last drive, truly, I believe, okay, you're 1st and 10, you get a good gain, now it's 2nd and 2. Okay, cool, solid. You go for another run, hopefully you get a first down, you don't, you only gain 1. Okay, 3rd and 1, solid, whatever. Okay, they line up looking like they could easily do another run. They could possibly fake to the outside, especially with majority, if not all, of Indiana's defense being stacked up in the box. You could have still done a quarterback sneak. You could have done a fake inside and then throw it over to like one of your receivers that would be behind you, or a fast running back that you would have. Throw it to the outside. As long as that receiver on the edge all the way out there is covering the block, you have solid room. And at the same time, these defensive players from Indiana are squeezing in. You guys should be able to do that unless you think your tight end on the end there, or whoever you have on the end, that you're going this way instead of drawing back and going for a pass that you guys clearly should know, regardless of the 258 passing yards that Julian Sayin had, going like how you guys did. You guys were still struggling against the passing game that Indiana was playing very good pass coverage against. So and at the same time, that same exact play, you guys are running the ball, and it's very good. Like, you guys are running the ball in a very good way, getting first downs. You guys are passing the ball a little bit, getting some solid catches. Yes, those solid catches led you to that point. But even having solid yardage for the run game, was exactly what you guys needed, mixing it up. But then that 3rd and 1 does not make sense to me. Why you pass it on 3rd and 1 and then at the same time give it to your kicker in such an awkward angle that previous kickers who have also went into the in their conference championships have also missed similar awkward angles. Now, granted, they trying to think. I know there is a game. I'm pretty sure it was the BYU and Texas Tech game, but one of the kickers was lined up on the left side and they were kicking toward the right side, so they were on the left side of the left pole. They kick it, and because they're not ending up being able to curve the ball correctly, it shoots right up past the left post and goes over there with the crowd. It has nothing to do with the wind, because it was a pretty decent day out. Like, it was just the fact that these college kickers, no offense to them, I'm sure that he could have gotten it and the nerves just got to the kicker, but it just, to me, did not make any sense on why they decided to do that. Truly, you guys should have, Ohio State would have gotten a first down, whether they drove the running back. Like, as long as blocks were there, you could have still missed one block, which in some passes, well, yeah, some passing plays and some running plays, you guys still missed a block or two, but the running back or the quarterback was able to maneuver themselves and either make the pass, or the running back was able to get out of the backfield and still make a few yards. So realistically, I think you guys should have freaking ran it. Ran it up the middle, maybe fake the middle run, and as long as you guys are getting blocks on this left edge here, you guys could either toss it, like backhand toss it, or you guys can just toss it, just whoop, like a little rugby toss over to whoever you got back there, and they make that, as long as no one gets held, you guys make that gravy. That it would be such a smooth play. You guys may even get that touchdown easily. And then at the same time, even if you held, it'd be like 3rd and 6, or no, it'd be like 3rd and 11, which then at that point, I get it. You guys can either pass the ball, or you guys can run the ball, just have your running back run more in the center field, so your kicker has a little bit better field position for himself, so he could just kick it straight through the uprights, because the Indiana Hoosiers aren't blocking that kick. You kidding me? Now, granted, things happened, and at the end of the night, Ohio made their mistakes, Indiana capitalized, and this is what we got tonight. Indiana winning the Big Ten Conference Championship, Georgia winning the SEC Conference Championship, Texas Tech winning the Big 12 Conference Championship, Duke winning against Virginia in the ACC Conference Championship, Western Michigan winning the MAC Championship, North Texas versus Tulane winning the AAC Championship, James Madison winning their conference championship, Boise State winning the Mountain West, and Kennesaw State winning the CUSA Championship. So down the line, some solid games. Looking back at it, you see a lot of different mistakes, a lot of different things causing a lot of different plays to happen the way that they did. Players getting nervous, maybe not, maybe it was just the things that just happened. Morale was down because of a last drive or a last play, and things happened the way they did. I'm not gonna necessarily cry about it, because at the end of the day, yes, we did not win. Ohio State did not win the conference championship, but that does not mean that that takes us out of our hopes and dreams and winning another national championship, hopefully back to back. But if we play like that against any other team, this type of stuff is going to happen again, truly. And whether that happens in the first round, whether that happens again when we face Indiana, if we face Indiana in the college playoffs going forward, is really just up to us and how we're able to, treat things. But at the end of the day, solid matchups, 9 solid games. You guys should definitely go back to them, watch those highlights of all the matchups. Let me know what you think of them. Comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you think of even my stuff, even though I did say it was going to be a very short one, and I ended up making it pretty much almost 42 minutes. So, like I said, like, subscribe, all that stuff. You guys have a very nice day, and peace.